Hey everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. By popular request, we're going to do a little video series on replacing Subaru head gaskets. Now I know most big automotive channels on YouTube already have their own series, but I mentioned it in the Subaru Forester water intrusion video that I was also here for a head gasket replacement, and a few viewers said they'd like to see my take on it, tips and tricks, whatever, and I'm more than happy to share that with you. So let's get started on this thing. So it's a 2009 Subaru Forester. It has the run-of-the-mill 2.5 liter single overhead cam with a timing belt. So this is the most popular engine that you'll be doing head gaskets on. I know the turbos, I think, have better head gaskets from the factory, so those don't tend to go as much. I mean, the problem with these is you just get oil leaks. See, it's all wet there. Oh, too much zoom. First they start leaking oil, then they start leaking coolant, like externally, and you don't want it to get that far, lose your cooling, your engine overheats, if something bad happens. I have some ornaments here on the wall. This is what an original head gasket looks like. You can see this. To begin with, they're coated with this black sealing substance. It's just a single layer of steel, and then the sealant just gets kind of, I don't know, eaten away or worn away by the thermal expansion and contraction of the engine. And eventually, this is the oil return galleries. You get oil leaks coming out there, and then here's the coolant jacket. So the coolant actually starts coming out right past this head bolt hole and squirting out the rear of the engine there. This is the driver's side. Usually that's the one that leaks the most. So we are installing, let's go to the bench here, take a look at the parts list. So we're installing this Felpro gasket set. There's the part number, and the gaskets in here are multi-layer steel. So that is the new and improved design. Here, I'll take one out and take a look at it. You can see it's like a sandwich of metal, and that solves the problem for good. There's no sealant to rot away or cause leaks. So I've done a few of these. I've used this set. I know there are other multi-layer steel gaskets out there. I think the 6-star, people like those. But definitely don't use the original dealer head gaskets, because you'll end up with the same problem 100,000 miles down the road. You don't want to do this job over again if you don't need to. So anyways, we have our full gasket set. It comes with obviously the head gaskets, the intake manifold gaskets, then we have our spark plug tube seals, which also like to leak, so obviously we're replacing those, valve cover gaskets, then the exhaust manifold gaskets, the EGR we won't need, we're not taking that off. Then one part you do need to order from the dealer is this triangle gasket, and that is where the exhaust manifold connects to the downpipe. For some reason that does not come in this Felpro kit, so order that separately. Now if you're taking the heads apart to take them to a machine shop, you'll need these other ones that come in the kit, like upper intake manifold. I guess these are the rubber seals for the ends of where the camshafts are, and then a whole bunch of O-rings, throttle body gasket, most of the stuff you won't need. And then if you're doing a valve job, these are new valve stem seals. So in this case, hopefully, we'll take the heads off, we'll inspect them. If everything is good, then we're just measuring the surface for flatness and putting them back on. We're not going to a machine shop if we don't need to. So that's that. Now, if your car resides in the Rust Belt and salty states, you're going to find a pleasant surprise and we'll get to that further down in the series. These valve cover bolts, right, you can see one right there. There's 12 of them, 6 on this side, 6 on the other side. But what happens is they, let's see if we can take a look at one of the rusty ones. Okay, you can see one right down there. That's going to be, I already feel that that is going to be our add to the labor time. See that guy right there? So Subaru in their wisdom changed the design of the valve cover bolts. They used to have these, little rubber grommets that would leak a little bit, but it was no problem. Just take them out, change them out. But now the valve cover bolts here have this, it's like a solid metal piece without threads, and then these thread into the head. So what happens is this part here sits in the valve cover, which is aluminum, and all these things are exposed to the elements. There's a little gap between the valve cover and the head, and the salt gets in here, travels down, and freaking corrodes this thing to the valve cover hardcore. So right off the bat, I went to the dealer and bought 12 new valve cover bolts. See, they're sold separately, it's not a set or anything, because those are most likely going to get destroyed in the process of removal. And I'll show you a few tips and tricks on how to remove those. Actually, I think that might be the hardest part of this whole head gasket job. If your valve cover bolts are seized, you're in for, for a good few hours of trying to get them out. Now, you could go full guerrilla like Eric O and get your torch out and just blast the bolts away, but then you'll need new valve covers. So if you want to get new valve covers, maybe you could go that route. But anyways, moving further down the line, obviously we're putting a new timing belt on, a dealer item. I'm not using the Gates kit anymore. If you've seen the other video, you'll know why. Same thing for the timing belt cover bolts. I got a new set of those. There's the part number, and then 4 of these non-shouldered bolts. So 10 and 4. There's the part number again. We're changing out the thermostat. That's a good idea. Again, OEM only. Nice beefy unit with a gasket included. Then 2 gallons of Subaru super coolant, OEM filter, oil filter, and some synthetic 5W30. So that is hopefully all the parts we'll need for this project. Just based on previous Subarus that I've done, that's what we're going to need. So buy that in advance, so you won't be waiting for parts while your car's disassembled and out of commission. So let's get to it. Just real quickly, here's some tools that you just want to get out. I actually enjoy working on Asian cars because all the fasteners are just standard, no European freaking like torques or anything of that nonsense. All we need is 10, 12, 14, long reach, short reach, a couple of extensions, ratchet. I got the long reach metric wrenches out. Those will be handy. A couple of power tools to speed up the process. You might want to get one of these longer ratchets with a swivel head. It has 3/8 and 1/4 inch. This is actually a Harbor Freight special, but it's been working fantastic. So I'm pleased with that. And a couple sockets for your electric impact, whatever. So that's what we'll need to get started. And I won't show the whole process, the simple stuff. I'll just kind of mention it, but we'll turn the camera on when things get interesting. So first thing you want to do to get started, the car is still on the ground. We're working from the top. Remove all this plastic stuff, air intake, air box, the mass airflow, etc. And then from this side, we'll want to remove the battery and a couple of these hoses. Again, this plastic cover for the belts. And actually, this belt right here on the air conditioning compressor is a stretch fit design. You can see that they actually modified, they still left the bolt holes for the tensioner that used to be here. I don't know why they went to a stretch belt design. I don't have any special tools to remove or install that, so hopefully we'll find a way to get around it. So before you get too far, you want to give the engine a good kind of a blow cleaning. Whew. Next we want to do from up top, get some of this wiring out of the way. Let's see, that's a 12. Wow, not enough balls. There we go. So again, when you take the wiring off, make sure you don't lose any washers or other little bits. So I like to keep that on the alternator. So the game plan is to get these accessories out of the way. It'll make it a lot easier to get to the components here at the timing belt. So basically the power steering unit flips up and you can temporarily live in that hole, get these hoses out of the way, clear some room, and then the AC compressor does the same thing, folds over there. The alternator, some people leave it, it's only a couple bolts, just get it out of the way and make yourself some room. So we'll get our alternator control unplugged here, the green connector, all these little quick clips. Get the harness out of the way. There's that. And this little guy with the AC clutch. Let me just take the clamp off the oil fill tube there. Just swing this whole harness out of the way. Sweet. Couple of other things you want to unplug. So the manifold is going to come off with the wiring harness. You see this big bulkhead connector right there. So what we want to do, let's see, unplug these oxygen sensors, and those will stay on the exhaust manifold, which is nice. There you go, sweet. Those two guys will stay on there. Let's see what else we need to unplug. On the heads, the variable valve timing hardware. See, the sun's kind of making it hard to see, isn't it? Okay, you can see the camshaft position sensor. That's this little guy right here. So pop that off. The oil control solenoid. There you go. Blue connector right here. And the oil pressure switch. White connector right there. See this little harness. That's good. See, down in here we can unplug the oil pressure switch. That's this little guy. I should just ship up right off. That's one. Coolant temp. Now again, some of these will be easier if you remove some of the accessories beforehand. Again, spark plug wires you can remove now or later. These actually pop out pretty easy. Wondering if tubes are full of oil, and yeah, they look a little wet. So those tube seals, definitely a good good time to change them out. Oh yeah, that one's all wet and nasty. That could definitely cause a misfire, huh? For sure. Let's see if we can take a peek in the oil in the tube for the spark plug. Sometimes getting the right camera angle is harder than doing the repair, you know. With lighting, yeah, see there's just some oil starting to seep down there. Same with the back one. When they get real bad, they actually oil starts coming out of the holes and dripping down the valve cover. But then that's when it gets real bad. Also, one thing you might want to think about is getting new spark plugs. I checked these; they look fine. I think they've already been replaced, so we're not going to worry about that. All right, guys. Next step: get this car securely up on jack stands. Now you don't want to get it too high up, since we're still going to be working from the top here. Pop the wheels off. Get these plastic fender liners out of the way. Stash them over there. Next thing we're going to do is drain the coolant and get this radiator out of the way, so we won't have to worry about that later. And I'm not seeing a drain petcock on the radiator. Oh, it looks a little crusty under here. So we might do is let's see here. Well, I guess there's a little plug right down there, so we could just undo that and let the coolant drain into a pan. And we'll start undoing these fans and get this out of the way and get some working room. It's really nice to work when you have a lot of room instead of trying to get around something that you'll end up taking out later anyways. So we pop that little plug out. Coolant is draining. Take your radiator cap off to facilitate the process. Alright, we got the coolant drained off, and I want to separate this hose. Instead of taking off the clamp here, I just want to take off the thermostat housing, but one of the bolts looks a little angry, so I'm kind of worried about that. And to get good access to it, so we don't mess this up, let's just take the exhaust manifold off right now, and so we have some working room there. So to do that, just these three nuts right here. It's a 14 millimeter, and then 3 nuts on each side for the actual flanges on the head right there. So let's get that done. Let's see if the Nano with this little swivel socket can get these guys off. Jeez. Unbelievable. Just a straight 14. Anytime you use adapters or extensions or swivels, they take the oomph out of your impact. See, that's not going to work either. You need a little extension on there. Oh, more and more parts. Let's see. Alright, we got one. Let's see here. Yeah, the swivel's not going to work. Let's try to get this guy out here. Number 2. So we'll get this guy off of here. Try it with the straight extension. Sweet. So swivels definitely kill the power of your impact. So now our downpipe is loose at this flange. And all we got to do is take off our main nuts. Let's see up here. Woo! There's one. A little toasty. Definitely lube these nuts if they're looking. Two. Going by feel here. Whoa! See if you guys can see what's going on over here. Woo. Oh, that was too easy. That's three. Let's go to the other side. Alright guys, last nut. This thing should come down. Alright, this sec. Basically, there's not enough room to get these studs out and drop at the same time, so we'll just undo this hanger back here. No big deal. Whew. Rusty. Alright, get a jack stand under here, lift it up and pop this. Oh, let's see here. Pop this hanger off. This whole pipe should come down. And that will allow us to bring the whole manifold down. Now, one thing we forgot to do is unhook the wires for the oxygen sensors. Always forgetting something. Off camera it's so much smoother, you know? So these guys, you don't want to stretch the wires obviously, so let's either take this bracket off or just get these plastic retainers out and let the wires hang free. So my favorite way to get these little push retainers out, so if it's in there, just take a pick and you go first from the top side, you'll come halfway out, and then from the bottom you should pop the rest of the way out. So let's let these guys hang here. Now lower the entire manifold. Let's see here. See, I don't know if this would be easier on a lift or not. I've never actually used one, but when you're on the ground you can kind of help it out with your legs. And it should separate. Let's see here. It should separate from that flange. Bingo. That is your whole exhaust manifold. It's kind of a bulky, heavy unit. There's the gaskets. And there's the gasket for this side stuck on here. Get that guy off. Man, everything's like crusty under here. Definitely a northeastern car, let me tell you. Alright, now we can attack these thermostat housing bolts. So now we can actually take a really good look at where this oil leak's coming from. Right at the rear, on the front of the driver's side head gasket, and it's getting all over the place. The engine mount, the power steering boot, everything. And yeah, it just causes a mess. Let's see, passenger side. Yeah, it's getting there. Not quite, it's not quite dripping yet, but it's definitely getting there. But this side, that's when you want to start thinking about replacing it before it gets too bad and coats everything. But at least it kind of coats the lines here. Yeah, that line doesn't look too good, does it? Just the rust getting on everything. So get yourself your favorite rust penetrant oil, and we'll start spraying around here. So here's what I'm talking about, these exhaust cover manifold bolts. You try unscrewing that head is going to rip right off. You're going to round it. So I'll show you a way that I deal with these, and this one right here is the most pain in the butt to get to. It's kind of covered by this cross member. But anyways, let's, I want to spray for good luck. We'll just spray some coil on all these bolts. So see, the salt and moisture gets right in here and travels along the bolt and seizes it to the valve cover. So it's kind of a terrible design. Because we want to give these bolts the best chance they have to get out of here. Let that soak in a little bit. Now, one thing you can remove, these stupid ground straps, which basically you just pull on them and they rip right in half. I don't know what the point is. See, this one's already, oh my gosh, it's just a piece of crap. I don't know what the point is, because everything's grounded already. It's kind of silly, so don't worry about replacing those. I'm going to tell you right now, unless the engineers know something I don't. Spray all these guys down. Oh man, I can already tell it's going to add a few hours to the labor time. The book time for this job, if everything comes apart easy, is like 10 hours, or 10 and a half hours. But this is going to be more like 15. Oh, I don't know. With the video, with editing, and obviously longer than that. We want to do the best we can. So these thermostat housing bolts, we want to spray those down. Another one on top here. Spray that guy down. Keep your fingers crossed that those will come out. That's the next step. We've got to remove these, let the coolant drain, and take the radiator out. Well, the Forester has another surprise in store for us. Let's take a look at these exhaust valves. I was hoping to get this car out of here tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. Take a look in these exhaust ports. This is the driver's side. What do you see? See that? Boom. See, that valve guide has migrated out of the head about, I don't know, a good half an inch. That's crazy. Now, these look okay. Let's see, get some lighting in there. See how they're supposed to be all the way up in there? Like that one, that one. Bad. Bad valve guide. And that one looks okay. So in this case, we're going to end up tearing the heads apart and sending them to a machine shop and getting new exhaust valve guides pressed in. Hopefully they'll go well, but it'll add a little, an extra part to the video, I guess, like a head tear down, getting the camshafts out, etc. But for now, let's get this intake manifold off and the valve covers off, because that's a project all on its own. So I don't know. I used to think Subarus are really reliable and bulletproof, but this guy here is kind of changing my mind.